and go from there. All right. Greetings, everyone. This is John Jamerson with the Legacy Farming and Health Group in our Life Project. It's good to see everybody here today. This is our third Thursday special guest speaker. And our special guest speaker today is Lauren Horning with FreshPoint. And she is coming from Durham, North Carolina. Correct? All right.
You got it. Yep.
And so she will be giving us a few points today, and I'm going to turn it over to our hostess for today, Miss Tamika, and let her go ahead and do her little introduction and thing, and then we'll go ahead and let her go with the speaker for today. All right, Queen Tamika.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, for joining. As you all know, it's our third Thursday. We always try to have an informative guest speaker on either value-added services or agriculture-related topics. Today, we're going to be joined by Lauren Horning out of North Carolina, but most importantly, with FreshPoint. They're a division of Cisco, one of the largest wholly owned produce and distribution companies in North America. And they're going to talk a little bit more about their procurement program and initiatives they have for small and local farmers, which is right along the lines of where I like to sit with that value added, like what happens after harvest, you know, who's your customer, where do you distribute your products to? And I think Lauren will have some really great insights on their programs and how you can participate. So Lauren, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and you can go over your team's program and how farmers can participate.
Awesome. Tamika, John, thank you so much. Just a quick background on me before I share my screen and kind of show you some slides and whatnot. My name's Lauren. I live in Durham, North Carolina. My role with FreshPoint is to build their local sourcing program. So I grew up on a small farm in central Pennsylvania. My dad was the extension agent for the county, and so I grew up with ag, but wanted to, I guess, prove to myself that I could do it by myself. As any good kid, I went away and tried to figure out farming on my own, only to go back home and see that my dad actually knew a lot more than what I was discovering on my own. So I farmed for a little bit in Argentina, and then came back and worked on an urban farm in urban Pittsburgh. And then moved to North Carolina, and I've been here for the past 7 years, building up the local program for FreshPoint, specifically here in the Carolinas. We started with about 30 farmers and grew the program to just over 100 local farmers and artisans. And we pretty much only do produce at FreshPoint. So we do a little bit of dairy, which would include milk, eggs, yogurt, but I'd say probably about 90% of what we do in general would be selling produce. And so out of that Carolinas local program, I recently started working on the national scale to build FreshPoint's local program, which would allow farmers to connect with their local FreshPoint warehouses to sell into those. So I put together some slides today, but really the goal of this local program is building up markets for small and mid-sized local farmers. So happy to take questions at the end, supply chain, local food, customers. Feel free to keep them in mind or put them in the chat, and I'll go through these so you can kind of see an idea of what we're looking at. So I'll share this screen. Tamika, can you see that? Did that come through okay?
Yes, I can see it. How about everyone else? Just a thumbs up, or you can put a reaction in the comments. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. So let me go through to this screen. Alrighty. So what you're looking at right now is a map of the United States where there are FreshPoint sites. So we have 27 warehouses throughout the United States. We do have a recent acquisition in Hawaii and Puerto Rico, but I would say most of our sites are aggregated in the East Coast and Southeast. And then from those warehouses, we have truck fleets. So the majority of our business is food service based, which means that we deliver to restaurants, hotels, hospitals, universities, country clubs, anywhere where there would be a chef. And then we also do a small portion of our business with retail. So that would be working either with independent retailers or with corporate retailers and delivering either to their distribution centers or to individual stores, which is what we would call DSD or direct store deliveries. All of our trucks are refrigerated. So we do work with the cold chain when we're delivering to customers. And then when we're bringing in product, we do ask that farmers deliver on a refrigerated truck because that extends the shelf life. So looking at the cold chain is pretty important to us. Within our warehouses, we have different groups of teams. So we have a sales team that works individually with chefs on menus or consulting, deciding what types of products they can use. Then we have customer service, drivers, and then kind of a receiving warehouse team. Traditionally, with the produce industry, most product has come out of California or it's imported. So what this national local program really looks to do is to source more from local farmers and less from the West Coast. And so that allows a shorter supply chain, but it also allows us to talk with customers about the importance of using local foods and sourcing locally. On our side, what we look to do is say, okay, what are the products that we're stocking that either grow in this state that we can crop plan with farmers, or that are already growing and we can look to stock them because they are unique and regional flavors. So for example, here in North Carolina, muscadine grapes are extremely important. They don't grow in California, they only grow in the Carolinas, a little bit in Virginia, a little bit down in Georgia, but muscadines are a regional flavor. And so being able to incorporate those flavors and take them to chefs or to retailers who could then value them is part of the goal of building up that market, as well as then looking at, say, a crop like watermelon radishes. Radishes are really versatile, they can grow here. So there's no reason we should be sourcing them from California when local farmers can benefit from that market. So those are the synergies we look to find is, okay, how can we take crops that only grew in the West and now we can grow them locally with farmers, or even on the West Coast, how can we grow them more hyper locally to the warehouse to benefit small and mid-sized farmers? So in looking at that, as we look at who are the farmers that we're working with, I would say part of that strategy is developing a hierarchy of buying from local farmers first. So rather than buying from large agri growers, it's looking at how can we support small and mid-sized family farms and buy from them to support their products and then buy from larger agri growers next. And so it's kind of changing this strategy and mentality of sourcing. And we fully recognize that not every farmer is going to know how to grow wholesale. There's a big step between growing for a farmer's market and being able to grow for the food system at large. So a piece of that is I will walk farmers through individually. If a farmer is growing yellow squash and they want to be able to sell into the market, we'll look at, okay, what's the size of squash? Do you want to grow a fancy size that's 4 to 6 inches? Or do you want to grow a medium-sized squash that's 7 to 9 inches? How do you find a half bushel box? How do you cool the product? So being able to walk through those individual specs is important, as well as being able to provide, this is where market pricing's at. Does this work for you? If not, yes, we can be at the price that you're asking for. We just need to market it as something else. So we might not be able to have the volume. So I think one of the biggest parts of the local program is being able to provide transparency to farmers, especially small farmers, because I don't think that's always been available in the food system. And so being able to have that conversation back and forth on, if you have questions as a farmer, if you're not sure about this, let's talk about it, because I don't want you to feel like the food system is against you or that we're a big company. Really, the goal is for us to have a successful local program, we have to be able to work with you and meet you where you're at and really be able to support you in the ways that you need to be supported. So that's the perspective on the farm side. As we look at the customer side, these are some of the benefits that they would receive from us. And I've got a couple assets that I'll show you in the next couple of slides that look at what is the customer actually seeing and receiving from us. So one would be, we do have a website. It's called local.freshpoint.com. Anyone can go onto this website. So you can log on. And at the very top, you'll come to a piece where you can type in your zip code, a city or a state. From there, you can define what you would define as local. So some customers define it as 50 miles. I'd say on average, the majority of our customers define it as about 250 miles. And then you can just hit enter. From there, it'll bring up your state and the farmers that we're currently working with within that area and how you're defining local. Each one of these leaves represents a farm bio. So this allows us to provide transparency then back to customers on who we're sourcing from. So this is an example of one of the farms we're sourcing from in the Carolinas. New Ground Farm farms on about 10 to 15 acres. Sometimes they lease about 5 acres. They're Lumbee farmers, so it's a Native American tribe in North Carolina, and they mostly grow specialty crops. So if we have a chef that would be buying, say, mixed cherry heirloom tomatoes, which is what New Ground Farms are growing right now, the chef could say, listen, I'd like to put this on my menu, or I'd like to have an event around this crop. Could you share with me a farm bio so I can educate my clients on who this farm is? So we could email this over as a PDF, or the chef could visit the website and see. And this allows full transparency. Even though we're the distributor bringing the product, the chef could still know this is exactly who the farmer is and what the product is, where the product's coming from. Another way we look at transparency with local is we have an online ordering platform that anyone who signs up as a customer has access to. And to find local products that we have in stock, all they have to do is type local into the search bar, and it pulls up anything that has local within our inventory system. So as a produce distributor, we do stock non-local products. And part of that is the mentality of sourcing from the West Coast. We stock oranges and bananas and spring mix, any type of fruit or vegetable you could imagine. We have about 300 different produce items, which would be different sizes of tomatoes, different colors of tomatoes, anywhere on the spectrum that you could imagine walking into a restaurant and ordering a product. We typically have that product in stock. If we're stocking less, or if we aren't stocking 5 cases of that product a week, or if we're not moving 5 cases a week, then we're not stocking it. And that's mostly due to warehouse space. But if we are stocking it, then a chef can order it online for next day delivery. We also send out a weekly local list. So every FreshPoint site, this is an example of products that are in stock. This is an example of the local list that we sent out in FreshPoint Raleigh in May. But the local list will feature both the farms, the products, and whether the products are either in stock or whether they're pre-order. So this is a page that focuses on in stock. Page 2 would be pre-order items. So these would be items that we don't necessarily sell 5 cases of a week, but that we can still work with farmers to get. This also allows us that if a farmer wants to have a price that's higher than, say, the market price or higher than what most other customers are willing to pay, then we can still offer it if one single customer wants to pay a certain amount. So for example, the sugar snap peas from Priest Family Farms, they were at about $4 a pound. Sugar snap peas that were coming from the West Coast, they were about half of that. So we can still offer local sugar snap peas and give customers the option either to buy local or to buy non-local, and that allows the local farmer to make more. So rather than needing to go down to market price, that's not our goal. Our goal is to be able to say, okay, we can educate the farmer and say, okay, this is where the market price is, but if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. We'll still list your products on a local list. Folks still see that they have access to it, and then they can order it if they'd like to. It also allows us in this pre-order section to be able to call out specifically Black farmers, minority farmers, what the market right now is calling BIPOC farmers, to be able to offer Black farmers a higher price premium for their products. So rather than, again, going into that market price, we can go to a Black farmer and say, listen, you need twice as much to be able to invest back in your farm. Okay, here's where the market's at, let's double it, and we'll see if we can sell it. And if we're not seeing sales, we can then regroup with the farmer and say, okay, let's look at what works for you, what doesn't work for you. If you have another market and you're already selling your products, that's great. No problem at all. We'll keep it where the price is at and roll with that. So I feel like we do get a lot of questions on pricing. Again, the biggest goal is to be transparent. If you have questions on market pricing, I'll let you know where market pricing's at. If you want to be at that to move volume, that's fine. If you want to be at your own price where you're already seeing that you have success, that's okay too. The ultimate goal is, how do we make small and mid-sized farmers successful? And it's meeting you at that space. So that's the weekly local list. To become a new farmer for FreshPoint, I would say that the biggest hurdle would be the food safety certification. So we do require a harmonized GAP audit. GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices, and there are different levels. So previously, the USDA GAP, which is the lowest level, was what was accepted by produce distributors until FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act, came out. When FSMA came out, then the level of audit bumped up to a harmonized GAP. And the harmonized GAP means it's a combination of the USDA GAP and FSMA. So because FSMA is a national mandate, then GAP audit is not, as a farmer, you don't have to get a GAP audit. It's self-elected. So they had to combine that national mandate with FSMA along with the self-elected GAP to get to the harmonized GAP audit. There are levels above a harmonized GAP. There's harmonized GAP plus, there's GFSI, Primus GFS. So harmonized GAP is just that second level, and that's what we would require from local farmers. There is a cost to getting a GAP audit, and that's one of the biggest things that I would say is something to look at. Every farmer needs to look and see, is this going to make sense for you financially? The smallest farm that we work with is an acre. They have 4 greenhouses, they live on the acre, and they harvest a lot of hydroponic lettuce. And so they're able to make it work. They are GAP certified. And then we work with farmers that are several thousand of acres. So it really depends on how are you going to run your budget to make sure that you're making money. If you'd come to me and say, listen, I'm selling all of my product at a farmer's market and I'm selling out every week, I would say don't get GAP certified. You will always make more money as a farmer selling direct to consumer because that gets you a retail price. If you have more product that's left over after your current sales, or if you're looking to expand your acreage or just in general go through more volume, then I would say consider wholesale, because that wholesale process is linked into getting GAP certified. When you get GAP certified, that opens up the door to sell wholesale. But always remember, you will make more money going direct to consumer. It's only when you go indirect that I would say is when you look at GAP and just recognize there's probably going to be a lower price point that comes with selling wholesale. It's more of a way to move volume. So if you've got other questions on GAP audits and whatnot, we can chat through it. Some states do have a GAP cost share program. So if you're considering GAP, I would look into that. Here in North Carolina, the state government has a 3-year GAP cost share program, which means the first year they covered up to $900, the second year up to $600, and the third year up to $300. And I know there's GAP cost share programs in Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida. So depending on where you're at, you'd want to check either with Cooperative Extension or farmers, nonprofits, the State Department of Ag, and see what's out there, because if there's free money, you definitely want to take advantage of that. And if not, then we can still look at what are options or what's available potentially through other avenues. On the insurance side, you can come to us with any level of insurance. We don't have an insurance minimum. So FreshPoint actually provides an insurance supplement to local farmers that will supplement your insurance up to 2 million, 4 million policies, which allows us then to sell your products to any type of customer, corporate, regardless of how big they are, no matter what. So you could come to me with, say, a $1 million farmer's comprehensive liability or a $1,000 farmer's comprehensive liability. And any type, as long as you can show some type of coverage, regardless of how small or how big or whatnot, we accept any level of insurance. So insurance, I would say, is probably the easiest piece. And then new vendor paperwork would be, where do you want your bills, or where do you want the check sent? We pay by direct deposit, typically in about 21 to 30 days. And then it would appear in your bank account and you get a remittance receipt in your email. So those are the three main pieces of paperwork to become a new vendor for FreshPoint. And then the other pieces are just secondary, ideally keeping us up to date weekly on what harvests you have, being able to send us an invoice because that's how we would pay for orders, having a label on your cases that says this is the farm name, city, and state. So when part of that is part of the gap audit, it's showing the traceability. The other piece is so when a chef gets the product, they know exactly where it's coming from. So then as they see the quality and they can taste the flavor of it, then it builds your brand as a farm and they want to support you more. So that's kind of a two-way street there. Is one, both the education to the end consumer, and then two, abiding by the gap audit and traceability. So that's the new vendor information piece. And then here's my contact information. If you have questions on going wholesale, if you're interested in selling to FreshPoint, if you're curious about anything else in the supply chain, I'd say send me an email or send me a text. Please don't feel like you have to call. Texting is just fine with me. You're welcome to send me a text, and that's usually the fastest way that I can get back with folks. And I'm happy always to answer questions or kind of make it a little bit more transparent about how the supply chain's working. Does anyone, I'm going to stop sharing my screen from here. Does anyone have, I see some questions in the chat or some direct messages. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions that you'd want to go through?
Actually, Lauren, I think I have one or two.
Yeah, go for it.
So I threw some information in general team and anyone who's on the Zoom regarding harmonized gap cost share program with USDAs. So those are links we'll also share out after we're done. But can you talk to us about the difference between group gap certification and individual? I know, as I've been working with farmers, kind of funneling your way about this program, one of the things that most farmers are concerned with, hey, we're a part of a co-op. Is this something we can do as a group, or do we have to, be certified individually? I'm wondering if you can speak about that.
Definitely. Yeah, great question. The main issue with a group gap is that a group gap allows an auditor to train someone, and that trained person then gives the audit. So we actually don't accept a group gap because it's not from an officially trained auditor. Whereas what I would suggest is to work directly with the auditor. And if there are other farms that you are neighbors with or are friends that are in your area, talk with the auditor in advance so you can schedule all of your audits either in the same day or in adjoining days. Because then what you'll do is every gap audit is the auditor will bill by the amount of distance and time that they have to drive to get to your farm. So if you're able to split that drive time amongst the other farmers, then you're able to save a little bit more money there. So that drive time would include both going to your farm and for the auditor to drive back to their house. So that would be my biggest suggestion is we don't accept a group gap because it's not done by a direct auditor, but you can still get the benefit of splitting up travel time and any other delays that the auditor would go through by scheduling audits one after another with neighbors or other people in your area.
And do you know, by chance, and this is another question and I will turn it over because I know we have a lot of folks who join and hopefully they have questions as well. But do you know if your trade associations like the Eastern US Trade Association, the Western US Trade Association, if they offer, I guess that would be the gap cost share programs at all, or if they have maybe information or access around those cost shares? Cost shares are helpful because we know these things can be a cost premium. So it'll be interesting to know if they have information about that.
Yeah, so I haven't heard of trade organizations that have gap cost share information, but earlier this week I did see that USDA actually came out with extra funding for food safety for small farmers, particularly for minority farmers. And that food safety funding would go into effect if you got your audit after June 21st of 2022 until January of 2023. So that what we're trying to figure out right now is that in addition to the state gap cost share programs? And we think, yes, it is. So you could get both your state as well as the federal funding. So there's an online website for USDA. I'll see if I can pull it up and put that link in the chat. If I can't find it quickly, I would say Google like USDA food safety funding, because that just came out from what I saw this week.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. I'll turn it over to anyone else who has questions. Please ask away.
Jerry, looked like you had something up there.
I do. Thanks, John. Lauren, this is an excellent program. I'm here in Dallas, Texas. I was wondering how long has the program specifically been around for your BIPOC group as far as bringing those farmers on board?
Great question, Jerry. So FreshPoint has had a local program, I'd say, since 2014, 2015, but it hasn't been agriculturally focused. It's more so been open. If a farmer reaches out, FreshPoint could work with the farmer. Me stepping into this national position is how we've now transitioned into having an agricultural focus. So when FreshPoint hired me back in 2016, it was a new position. I kind of built and created as I went along, really with the goal to find small and mid-sized farmers and to build up markets for them. And so now after seeing the impact of that, that's when they said, okay, you know, we can and should be doing this nationally. So now with the agricultural focus, that's what we're now starting to do. So that's what I'm bringing to the team.
How many people work with you on staff in your department? You got a small department. And I'm asking you these questions, Lauren, because I haven't heard about this, and I'm originally from Ohio, right? So I didn't hear about it in Ohio for 9 years. Then I've been here in Dallas for 6 years. I know farmers across the board, and so more aggressive if I can. So I was just wondering how many staff you had, you know, and how aggressive is your department in pulling in these farmers?
Great question. So what I work more or less on the national level. Every FreshPoint has a team of buyers. And so what I do is I work and talk in conferences and whatnot and make connections either directly with farmers or with groups that can put us in touch with farmers. So then we can build those into the merchandising groups that already exist at the FreshPoint warehouse levels. So the individual merchandisers, I would say every FreshPoint warehouse has between 3 to 8 to 10 buyers per warehouse. And each buyer would have a different role. So sometimes there's a West Coast buyer, a specialty and local buyer, an East Coast buyer. And so there would at least be one buyer at every warehouse, plus then additional support, a vice president of buying at the individual warehouse. Then there's me at the national level, and then I report into the vice president of merchandising for FreshPoint. So I'd say that would be the team breakout. My goal would be I'll kind of be the liaison. If you're working with farmers, or if it would be working directly with you, I'll be the one to get you into. We actually do have a FreshPoint in Dallas and one in San Antonio. And so we'd look to first, I'd work with you, figure out what works, what doesn't work, what are the types of farmers, what are they growing, what are they interested in? And then once we can get through that vetting piece, then I'll link up directly with the gentleman named Nick Roca. He's the vice president of merchandising in Dallas, and we'll start to loop in more people to get the support needed for the farmers.
Okay. My last question, with the larger supply chains, can you do some of the thing in the larger supply chain and then why you are, or why FreshPoint like going after this smaller local and getting this smaller supply chain going, next few years?
Can you repeat that one more time, Jared? I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Your supply chains, so you have your larger national supply chain, and you have your issues getting from the West Coast, to the Midwest or East Coast. And I was just saying, why is FreshPoint tailoring itself to smaller supply chains now?
Great question. Yeah. So it's part of its customer demand. Chefs are looking to buy more local produce, and we work with large groups like Compass and Airmark and Sodexo, which we would call group purchasing organizations. And they also have a corporate interest in supporting local farmers. So that's a piece of it. The customers that we work with are asking for more local produce. Then I would say the other side on, besides customer demand, would be supply chains out of the West Coast are sometimes unreliable. So either that's quality based, whether it's freight, whether it's consistency. So being able to work with local farmers to grow those products is beneficial to us on the receiving side. And then I would say ethically and morally, it's what can and should be done to work and support in local communities that can grow the product and should be growing the product. I think it's produce in general was built off of the West Coast in the 70s when truck routes really became prominent, and we've seen a shift. There have been more folks asking for local produce, but it hasn't been incorporated into the food system at large. And so I would say that's something as a society we've needed to do for decades. And it's difficult to do because you have to break contracts, but it helps when there are those other pieces that customers are asking for it. And there's a need on the quality side that it's difficult, but it's something that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Great answer, Lauren.
I'd like to add to that, Lauren, that due to the COVID issues that we've all just gone through over the past couple of years with the supply chain being broke down, the request, as Lauren was saying, for locally grown produce and stuff has tremendously increased. And so even here in Indiana, we are, getting approached by many different vendors and stuff who are out there sourcing produce and stuff, ones who normally didn't come in our direction. And so, this is a great opportunity that Lauren is providing. And but yeah, I think a lot of the changes that you see is directly due to the COVID. I liken it to 9/11, how drastically events changed at the airports. Before you could go all the way up to taking someone to get on the plane and being there at the door to greet them as soon as they got off the plane. And things drastically changed at the airport since then. That's how our food chain is getting ready to have a drastic change also. A lot of things are going to be more local. As Lauren and I was talking about, and I've shared on here about the LFPA grant, each state now is looking at doing this very same thing, working with more local farmers, smaller farms and stuff than what they used to help out with these issues that they seen arise due to the COVID. Anyone else out there have any questions? And I know there are a few came in a little late. So this is Lauren Horning with FreshPoint. So for those that that didn't get a chance to find out who she was with and everything, I heard somebody say something. Who was that? Was that Joyce?
It was, yeah, I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
Is this kind of working for trying to kind of combat this situation where we have all these people buying up farmland, like the people from China and what's this Microsoft guy, Bill Gates, making these mega farms? Is this going to help us, kind of fight that kind of situation as far as keeping the food power diverse instead of in one person's hand?
I would say it's not necessarily that wasn't the goal of working in the local program, I would say, but if I were a farmer looking at this, what I would see it as, this allows small farms to have a more sustainable future. So if it's truly the goal of the farm to have a market, stay in farming, keep a market, possibly put the farm into a conservation easement so it can never be developed, depending on what the goals are of the farm, I would see that as being able to keep generational wealth in land, and to be able to keep land and keep it profitable, thus then means that people don't need to sell their land. So when those are all connected, I would say, yes, that keeps larger land grabbers from taking people's land, but especially where, that land has been in the family, and it's not just land, it's more than that. It's a cultural site. It has food that's special to that area. So to me, it's not necessarily a direct goal of our local program at FreshPoint, but it can benefit the end farmers in being able to sustain their land for future generations.
And then my second question is, what scale or capacity does an urban grower have to produce in order to be a part of this?
So any farmer of any size could sell to FreshPoint. My suggestion would be looking at what your current sales are. And if you're able, typically urban farms, because they're in an urban area, have a direct customer base that's willing to pay more. And if you're, as an urban farm, able to sell a majority of your product direct to consumer, I would honestly say, don't sell to FreshPoint, don't sell wholesale, and go the direct to consumer route. If you have a CSA, if you're working with farmers markets, if you're selling to local grocery store, like independent grocery stores that are in the urban area, my suggestion would be stay direct to consumer as much as possible, because you'll make more money that way. If at the point where the urban farm, you're not able to sell everything that you've got, or if you have specialty produce that you're growing and you want to put the money into getting GAP certified, then I would say, yes, there's potential. And I'll give you a story on kind of the reasoning behind that. In Raleigh, we have a woman-owned farm that is about 2 acres. It's called Sweet Peas Urban Gardens. And the farm is about 15 minutes south of downtown Raleigh. A majority of their markets are selling to a CSA. They sell to 2 farmers markets, but they grow specialty produce as well as microgreens. And so this farm, it was beneficial for them to get a GAP audit, because the specialty produce that they were growing allowed them to get a higher price point in general, and people knew their farm. So by selling into wholesale, it wasn't a lower price, it was a higher premium price because of the specialty produce. And they didn't have large distribution costs because they were really close to our warehouse. So in some instances, it does make sense, but I'd say it's always always factor in the cost of GAP, because it's an annual cost. So if you're paying between $1,100 to $1,500 a year on a GAP audit, you'd want to do the math to say, okay, I would either need to sell 1,500 cases a year and think of myself as taking $1 out of my profit on each of those cases, or say you sell 750 cases and it's $2 out of your profit. Thinking through that way to make sure that you're going to make money at the end of the year. Because if you won't make money on that, if you're not going to sell enough to value that GAP audit, then it doesn't make sense to get it. And it would make more sense to put energy into finding more direct to consumer outlets, whether that's selling direct to a chef or whatnot. So truly any size farm can get a gap audit. It's more so the economics on the backside, what makes sense for you as the farmer.
Thank you.
Lauren, I have a question. I was noticing your map of where you have your FreshPoint distribution centers. I believe that's what it was. And I noticed there was not any in Indiana, Ohio, or Kentucky. Looked like there might have been one up in the Chicago area. If you know, what is the likelihood of getting something more local, or, you know, how does that work?
Closer to, yeah. So FreshPoint is a subsidiary of Cisco. And so there are more Cisco sites, many more Cisco sites than there are FreshPoint sites. Okay. I'd say right now, FreshPoint's focus is acquisitions. And so they're looking to buy more companies, to be in more areas and have more coverage. But the Midwest specifically is an area where we don't have a lot of FreshPoint sites. And so they've been trying to figure out what makes sense, what works, what doesn't work. I do know that there's a Cisco in Chicago, but they don't have, Cisco allowed FreshPoint to set up the insurance program where we can work with farmers of any size insurance, but Cisco doesn't have that program themselves. So they allow it for specialty companies, but not for them. So it's more difficult for farmers to work directly with Cisco than it is for them to work with FreshPoint. And it's easier for Cisco to buy the product from FreshPoint than it is specifically from small farms than it is for them to work directly with small farms. So at least in the Midwest, I don't know when they'll be acquiring more companies. I know Robert Gordon, who's the president of FreshPoint, he's always looking for more sites. And they just did an acquisition in around like the Delaware, Maryland area, which kind of helps with the mid-Atlantic. But for the Midwest, I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. Sorry, John.
No problem.
Sorry, John.
No you know, I'm always working. I'm trying to work those angles. I have one other quick question. I was trying to go over my notes and stuff of some of the things that you had on there. You say that you work with farmers on crop planning and things of that nature. You know, what we're dealing with here, especially in Indiana, we have a lot of farmers throughout the state who are on the smaller size of the farms. And one of the major problems that we have is everybody's basically growing some of the same things. And so how do you determine what specialty crops and unique crops should be grown in those areas?
A lot of it's a conversation with the farmer. So some farmers are more comfortable growing other crops than others. Some farmers have microclimates that are more favorable to specific crops as compared to others. Typically, what I try to do is look at crop families. So if a farmer is skilled at growing tomatoes and they have the soils and the microclimate to grow tomatoes well, but they're looking to diversify, or if they have customers that are able to accept or interested in other products, then I would talk with the farmer about, okay, what's your comfort level with heirloom tomatoes? Are you looking for a faster harvest? How about cherry heirloom tomatoes? And kind of talking through those nuances, because to crop plan, I'd want to make sure that we aren't the only customer for the product, because if something would happen like COVID again, and it shuts down all the markets, it really impacted the food service markets pretty intensely. And so when we talk about crop plans with farmers, it's really important to me that that farmer could have other outlets for that product as well. So if a farmer would say, yeah, I'm growing red slicing tomatoes right now, but I'd like to try heirloom tomatoes, then I'd say, okay, this is about how many cases a week we could use of 10-pound mixed heirloom tomatoes. Typically there's 4 to 5 different varieties as the case spec, or that specific case, what it needs to look like for food service standard. And then I would ask the farmer, are there other outlets that you could use for this product? Can you sell it to a farmer's market? Do you have a CSA that would be able to take the product? Are you selling to anybody else who might be interested? Because if the answer is no, then I would say, let's not do that, because I want to make sure the farmer is going to be safe at the end of the day. If they want to take that risk, then we would talk through that. And I would be fully honest and say, I don't feel very comfortable with you growing this just for us. If you want to take that risk, you need to know that if something happens in the market and we aren't able to buy it, at the end of the day, we're a distributor, we're a middle person. So our hands would be tied if we would lose all of our customers, that we wouldn't be able to buy it. So now there is a hedge to that yes, FreshPoint's part of a corporate company and we're not planning to lose a lot of customers, but it's important that the farmer knows that risk. And so that's part of the crop plan. And in general, for any farmer that works with any customer, always ask those questions. You need to know, what are they asking of you, and can you sell to anybody else? You should never have one customer that's buying a set amount of your product. A lot of farmers can lose either land or a ton of money in doing so. So that's how those crop plans work, is looking at, okay, what are products that we're stocking? Where are their needs? What works for the farmer? What do they have skill in? Because if a farmer grows root crops, say radishes, I probably wouldn't go to them and say, can you grow eggplant, if they're not used to growing that crop, because it could set them up for failure if they're not familiar on the fertilizer schedule or the irrigation schedule. If they want to try it and say, put out, an ounce of seed or 2 ounces of seed, or do a 100-foot row and just kind of see how it goes, we can certainly work with that. But I'll typically look at crop planning for farmers that have experience or are willing and interested in growing that crop, to make sure it's setting them up for success.
All right. Is there anyone else that may have a question?
Yeah. Lauren, are you all, is FreshPoint taking any type of hemp products right now?
Great question. At this point, no. I've had some farmers come to me growing micro hemp. And at this point, from what I've read so far, FDA hasn't officially approved us on the food service side to be able to sell it. And we also haven't gotten any customer feedback for customers wanting it yet. So kind of a two-pronged piece there. We'd need FDA to approve, and we'd need customer demand for it.
Okay, I actually have a final question. I know we're getting really close to the end, Lauren. Do you guys have a target number of local farmers you're going to want in this program? I'm trying to get a sense of, will this come to an end anytime soon?
No. And the goal is, as we build up more support with local farmers, ideally more customers will want product that's grown by local farmers. So then it can just keep going and going and going. And we've seen success in that in the Carolinas. We created a BIPOC only program for Compass, which is a large group purchasing organization. And what we worked with Compass to do was that when we have yellow squash, zucchini, cucumbers, and red tomatoes grown by BIPOC farmers, we have a specific item code for BIPOC grown product, and they turn off anything else that's grown anywhere else anywhere, California, Florida, wherever. And so what that allows us to do is, one, pay Black farmers a premium, because Compass has allowed us, they've committed to allowing us to pay Black farmers more as a premium. So the idea is, one, buy only Black grown product, and two, pay more. And so in doing so, that changes the supply chain, and it allows the Compass operators, the chefs, to share that story with the people at their accounts. And now they're wanting to buy more and create more menus. So that's the goal. How can we do that with more customer groups to be able to say, this is a local specific program, whether the customer values local only, or whether they're willing to say, okay, this supports minority farmers, this supports Black farmers. We want to drive and support that. that's the goal. So the more we can do that, then the more we can drive towards local farmers. We work with more local farmers, and it creates this positive food chain that we've been talking about for how many years, and just hoping that we can build it.
That's right. We had a question. I know if you're not probably able to see the chat, so I'm going to read it. And Glenda, if you want to come off mic and also ask your question, but specifically her team grows microgreens and they're looking to know if you guys distribute those.
Thank you. Yeah, because hello everyone. Sorry about my extreme tardiness. And I'm hoping I picked up enough to understand what the conversation. We grow microgreens, and I just having a hard time figuring out where that fits in with a lot of the farmers, because the traditional outdoor and larger crops. So I'm hoping to get some insights and know for sure that it fits into this particular phone call. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenda. Yeah, so we do sell microgreens. Every FreshPoint has kind of different usages per microgreen. So some FreshPoints have more prominent sales with micro arugula and micro cilantro. Others more focus on micro bull's blood. It depends on the chef clientele in that area. And so I would say, Glenda, depending on where you're at, and feel free to shoot me an email. I put my email in the chat if anybody else wants to reach out. But I'm happy to chat more on that. The biggest piece would be if you're GAP certified. So as long as you're GAP certified on micros, then we look at, okay, where's your nearest FreshPoint site? What makes sense? What types of microgreens are you growing? But at least for us, yes, they are classified as a produce item, and it is something that we buy.
Yes, and
Yay, thank you.
Glenda, just as a recap, we'll be reposting this to the YouTube channel. John, I know you would normally share that out with the team. Of course, we'll always show the contact information so you can go back and kind of catch the gist. But yeah, I think it's a pretty great program. I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time. We're right at about an hour. Lauren, thanks for sticking with us and answering questions. Are there any other questions? Please throw them in the chat. We'll certainly try to answer them, but we do like to stay within our window because I know there's going to be some stuff after this, John, that you'll want to cover.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Lauren, for presenting this program. I really want to make sure as many people as we can start to hear about this. Like Jerry said, he hasn't heard, and we want to make sure people hear and they know and they understand how to be involved. So we appreciate you sharing with us today.
Awesome. And thank you for listening and giving me the space. And it's great to chat with all of you. I really appreciate the questions, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you think of anything else or want to chat more.
Thanks, Lauren.
I wanted to say, Lauren, also that it is refreshing to hear that there are corporations out there that are looking at the smaller farmers, who are looking at special programs or the BIPOC farmers. And so I just wanted to commend you on the efforts that you're doing. And, hopefully we'll be talking again. I'll definitely share what you've been doing with the different teams of farmers and stuff that I deal with. And so from what I hear, it sounds like a great opportunity. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. So with that being said, I want to thank Tamika for finding this great catch and sharing it with everybody. It's like the 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. She done brought enough to feed everybody. So that's a good thing there. So thank you once again for that.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And Lauren, if you like to stay on, you can. But if you or need to step off, that's fine too. We're just going to go over a little brief recap of our group and what we've been doing and everything from there. So just want to be respectful of your time. So thank you once again. So
awesome. I'm going to jump off, but thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So everybody, we are dealing with our life project. And we've been at this for 3 years, doing our spatial speakers thing on third Thursday. We touched everything from Cory Booker's office to major corporations to individuals who've come on and came out with scientific information and everything. And so we really appreciate everybody being with us. We look forward to the next 2 or 3 years. We'll probably have a few changes in how we do things. We want to do things, one, to continue to bring great information such as what we brought today with the FreshPoint. But we also want to take an opportunity to be able to promote more of the different farms and things that we have within our group and stuff. And so we'll be reaching out to you guys soon to begin to promote that, because we're looking at going into like Project Point 2, the second phase. I just recently was in Michigan. I got invited up to Michigan to a blueberry farm, and I've been trying to download my pictures, but my computer and my phone just don't want to. I think they're talking about a divorce or something because they're not working together right now. So I wasn't able to get things downloaded. But I had an opportunity to meet with, I can't even think of his name right now. That's terrible. Might help me out. Anybody know who I talked to? I know who was on here. Who knows who I talked to?
No.
No.
Oh, John. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing. Dwayne Goldman. Dwayne Goldman. That's who it was. Have one of them senior moments. So, but met with him this weekend, and we talked about some of the issues that I had personally. We talked about opportunities that are out there. There are a lot more opportunities that are getting ready to come up for Black farmers in particular. I shared with him my concerns about how, things are being, in a sense, usurped from our community. The things that they are, in a sense, trying to direct for us are being zapped away. So, they're looking at ways of getting things into our community because of all of the different disparities that have taken place over the past 200 years, basically, with farmers. But then there are certain groups and individuals who still don't think that they got enough and sent their way over the past 200 years. And so they're still trying to block and keep us from being able to get stuff. So one of the main things that we've had an issue with is with the $5 billion that the Black farmers have reached. And if no one knows who Dwayne Goldman is the head over the USDA's equity committee, race equity committee. He reports directly with Secretary Vilsack. A lot of times, if you see Vilsack on TV and there's a Black guy that's next to him, that 9 times out of 10, that's Dwayne Goldman. And so one of the things that he shared is that they're still battling with these court cases. There's been more that's come up. I think he told me that there's upwards to 15 now. And so they're dealing with those things. But he says that while they're battling with that they are trying to do things, put things out there that are more directly for us. I share with him my issues with what I see in the system. One, as he was sharing information that the infancy of the USDA began in 1850 something, which is pre-Civil War. And so as I shared with him, it wasn't even developed with us in mind. And so that's part of the system. And so, and I shared with him that in order for us to be able to grow and thrive, we have to, in a sense, create our own. And he couldn't disagree. And so, and that's what he's saying. Take these opportunities that are there now. We don't know how long they will be out there. We know that we do have a lead in the president who is putting that stuff out there now. So we know that for the next 2 years, this will be out there. What will happen after that? We don't know. So we got the ball in hand right now, and we need to score. And so this is that opportunity that we've been preparing for all this time. Like I said, the Light Project, we've had this for 3 years. We worked together for 3 or 4 years prior to that, without anything in our pockets to show for it, to get the stuff that we've been doing. And so I'm just putting that out there right now for us to all strongly consider how we can work with our people across the nation. We got people here from Tamika's in California, Darrell's in Virginia, Jerry's in Texas, I'm in Indiana. We got people all over the place here. Gabe's in Georgia. And so we have people all over the place. We're covering the whole nation with what we have here. And I'm just trying to challenge us to really understand what is taking place right now. These things that they're doing with the small farmers, that this lady, Lauren from FreshPoint just pointed out to us. This is where the target is. FreshPoint has been out there for quite a while, and as Jerry pointed out, he hadn't heard anything about these programs. And so understand it's through this administration that there's a stronger focus on trying to do stuff with our farmers and stuff. We need to step up to this opportunity and utilize it to the best of our ability. Think outside the box is what I have to say about that. And so, and that's basically what I wanted to share with you guys. I just want to thank you guys for being with us for these 6-7 years that we've been doing this, and we hope that you guys continue to do so. Like I said, we want to begin to start promoting the growers and stuff that's within. So be looking for that opportunity to be able to do a 3 to 5 minute spotlight on your business and what you're doing. We here in Indiana been working across the state here on that local purchasing agreement that I've been sharing with everybody. Is in every state. And so the thing is that is supposed to be out there for our farmers. I put that in the invitation last month so that everybody should have that. And I'll put it on the thing for this month also when I send it out again. Look at that, find out who in your state has that, become a part of it. That's supposed to be their product. It's supposed to perhaps be able to help with the GAP certifications and things of that nature. You don't know what they're putting out there, but it's out there to be able to help our farmers and growers get into the food system and try to break down some of those barriers. So we got to be there in order to do it. So, and that's it for me. I'm gonna pass it on to Queen Tamika. Let her share what she's doing there with the People's Foundation and Seed to Shirt. And Queen Tamika, it's on you.
Listen, I know, listen, we've been here about an hour now. I think most people know us, know what I do. I would just want to say one thing regarding the GAP certification. You guys, the programs for cost sharing are out there. wholesaling is not for everybody. I move units of shirts, so I kind of balance that myself, direct to customer or wholesale. But any avenue that you can increase multiple lines of income for your farm, do it. And I agree with you, John. It does kind of, I think it's starting to show that the ball is in our court, really. When you see major distributors like Cisco and FreshPoint, which is really Cisco saying that they're having to shift because the demand is telling them they need to shift. Well, that's telling you the ball is now in our court. And so all I would submit to us is, find out where those cost sharing programs are. If you do need help with that information, we have it. I've thrown some things in the chat. We'll make sure to follow up and get that out to everyone. Do what makes sense for you, your farm, and your family. I understand that. But, it's about us increasing our legacy, increasing our bottom line. And if this helps to do that, then do it. If it doesn't, it's all good. We'll keep looking at the resources that are out there to tap into. But that's all I have. I really thank you guys again. I want to thank everyone who always continues to join, whether they are a team replay or they're watching it live. We do try to bring as much good information as we can to us and our family. We consider you guys family, or at least I do. Anything we can do to help, we're here.
And where is the replay?
They should be on
John?
I will send out a new list with all of them on there to everybody that's on here. And I got Damon. Damon, I need to talk to you. So I'm definitely gonna get your email. I've been needing to get it. We need to talk. I got some business for you up there in Gary, Indiana.
What you can do, John, if you will give me the YouTube link where you're going to have all the replays for all the live Thursdays meetings, I'll actually put it in a reel on the website. I kind of am the lady of all 15 hats, so I can go back in and put it on the the website if I have that link. But I do need to make sure that they're all kind of put on the channel in a way that says Thursdays, and then I can just grab that and code it into the website.
All right, and that's what I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna introduce our last team member, lead team member, Darrell, aka Chef Joseph Anderson. And if he's out there and available, I'm gonna let him share briefly what he might be doing up there in Virginia. And if not, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. I just want to thank everybody for